accomplish. We are a political action committee that's really dedicated to making sure that Bond 3-473 to generate funds for our schools passes. And Mr. Mann's going to tell you a little bit about what exactly that bond measure is going to cover. But before we let him get started, we have a young man who we like to call the town hero a little bit. He had a really amazing year this past year serving as the Oregon FFA state president, and that's a really huge honor. And a part of that was that he got asked to speak in public a lot, so he's really good at it. But he wants to share a little bit about his time here at the middle school that he remembers, and also hopefully give you some inspirational words that you can take with you when you're engaging in conversations with others about why this bond is really important to our schools and to our community. So with that, I'm going to bring Luis Mendoza up.
Thank you. I don't know why people keep calling me the town hero or something like that. I haven't really done anything quite that big. But as Lauren said, my name is Luis Mendoza, and I'm currently 19 years old, and I grew up in the small town of Molalla here. And as I've grown up, I've gotten to see all of the great things that Molalla has done, and Molalla is known for, anywhere from the Buckaroo, the Ross Coleman Invitational, to our wonderful sports programs here that we have in town, to, of course, the big Share the Love fundraiser that we do every February. And as we all know, this last February was a huge success. So if you've participated, or you've donated, or you've been a part of any of those events before in any shape, way, or form, go ahead and raise your hand. Okay? Perfect. We've got quite a large majority of us have participated in those events. And that's really one of the great things one of the things that I love about Molalla, and I think one of the things that makes our small town quite unique and different from everyone else, and that's that we have people here that are willing to make a difference, and that are committed to the community, and are committed to making sure everyone is doing a great job. And now it's time for our small community to band together and once again do a great thing. And this time it's in the form of passing this bond measure that Lauren's talking about that will give access that will give our students access to better infrastructures here in the town. Because with all of the great things that Molalla has done, we oftentimes get a bad rep. And this is just another step in improving the overall image that Molalla does, because we have a lot of things to be proud of. And there's a lot of things that still need to be done. But like I said, I grew up here in Molalla. I'm 19 years old. I grew up in the small town, walking around the streets of what I like to call Motown, like rolling around. And I was a part of the Molalla School District for my entire educational career, and that means I came here to the middle school. And actually, I remember being in this very cafeteria at the end of my 8th grade graduation, or what you will, celebrating and being a part of my classmates and having a good time here in the cafeteria. And as we were going around the tour, I remember like so many different memories came back from being here at the middle school, and so many different things that I remember being in the gym. I remember all the different classrooms that I was. I remember being in the small 6th grade area and how crowded it was, and how just everything, it's interesting how everything has stayed the same, but with different people. You know, 6th graders are now going through that and experiencing the same things that I experienced, and hopefully later on, future students will have a new building to experience those things in. But I'd like to share a story of one of the things that I remember most about middle school and coming here to MRSD, Molalla River Middle School. And it involves dodgeball. So for those of you that don't know, dodgeball is this game with like these balls that you throw at people. Hopefully not intentionally hit them in the face, even though it's funny. But I got hit in the face quite a bit, as you can imagine. But anyways, I remember playing dodgeball, and in 7th grade, that was the big thing to do in our PE classes, was play dodgeball. We'd play in the gym and everything. But when I was coming here to the middle school, and I don't know if they still have this or not, Mr. Nelson, but one of the huge thing was intramurals. And we had intramural soccer, intramural volleyball, and of course, intramural dodgeball. And where this took place was after school, not in the gym, but in what used to be the mat room. And we just went up there, and it's now the fitness center. But back then, it was the mat room. It was used for wrestling and everything. And the reason it was called the mat room was because there was a ton of mats all over the place. And the reason why I enjoyed volleyball intramural, or dodgeball intramural so much, was you could jump and dodge the balls and throw at people and just have a lot of fun in this room while still being safe. And you could really get into the great game of dodgeball. So that happened in my 7th grade year, but going into my 8th grade year here, that was taken away because we weren't allowed to be in the room anymore. And I was talking about this with Mr. Nelson because of certain circumstances and what kind of a state the room was in. And the room was full of, I believe, asbestos or something like that.
Actually, the fact that you guys were too strong with your throwing of the ball. You made holes in my ceiling, you made holes in my walls, and it just wasn't a very
Exactly. So it went from this fun, safe environment to all of a sudden not being safe for the students anymore. And it's crazy how quick those changes can come. And I had a lot of great experiences in middle school, but one of the things I remember most was this experience of dodgeball being taken away from us and us not being able to play anymore. And although I remember a lot of great things from being here at the middle school, this is one of the things I remember most. And as you can probably imagine, it's not exactly a positive experience. It's a negative experience. Now I had that about 5 or 6 years ago when I came to middle school. Now you can imagine what kind of experiences the students are having now going to the middle school. Talking with my little sister, she remembers her time being a 6th grader and how crowded it was in that little hallway that's there. I mean, she was talking to me while we were walking, and she said, if it's crowded right now with all the people that are walking in there, because it was fairly crowded in there, imagine how it is with 159 students roaming the halls and everything. So that's another issue with what we have here with the school, is that the community of Molalla is growing and growing and the population is just going to keep getting bigger. And I think this school is getting to the point where it just can't sustain the amount of students that are coming in and they're being held here at the school. So that's just another reason to support this bond measure and cause difference within the community of Molalla. Because how many people here went to school in Molalla? A lot of people, okay, quite a bit of people, right? And I know a lot of high school graduates stay in the city of Molalla, so a lot of people have gone through the school district. Well, a few years back, there was a movement to build a new high school, and for the community back then, because they needed the new high school, and it's what we have now, and it's a really great high school. It's one of, like Lauren said, I got the chance to travel around the state, and I got the chance to see a lot of different high schools, and let me tell you, a lot of them are in pretty bad shape. But the one we have here at Molalla is really great, and the reason for that is because back then, someone believed in the students and that are part of the community of Molalla, and the students that were part of Molalla High School, they believed enough in them to build them a new school and to build them a better learning environment. Now it's time for us to believe in the future generations of Molalla and the future students and believe in them enough to build a new middle school and to build new infrastructure for our future students. Because let's be honest here, Molalla has a lot of things to be proud of, and here specifically at the middle school, a lot of things to be proud of, with improvement in test scores, like awesome teachers. But one of the things we can't be proud of the middle school itself, the infrastructure it is, because of how bad a shape it is and how much we really need a new one. So now it's time to give the students an opportunity to be proud of something else within Molalla, in addition to the Buckaroo, in addition to Show the Love, in addition to the Roscommon Invitational, and to be proud of our school district and to keep being proud of our schools. So I know I said a lot, and my main message is this, that we need to come together once again to do something great for our community and building a new school and giving our students even more of an opportunity to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. So at this time, we're going to have Mr. Tony Mann come up. If you're not familiar, he is our district superintendent, and I've been calling this his State of the Union address, just kind of what led us to the decision that we needed a bond in this community and what exactly that bond's going to cover. And then after that, we'll have an opportunity to answer any questions that you might have. So with that, Tony, I'll leave it to you.
So Luis is perfect. Lights on, I think, are fine. You guys will tell me here in a little bit, but Luis is a tough act to follow, but I will tell you, having had an opportunity to serve in a number of different school districts before coming here 4 years ago, to have a young person like Luis, speak to adults with the kind of presence that he has. He's an example of the kind of kid that this community raises. He's an example of your kids and your grandkids. This is a community that I think deserves to feel proud of the quality of community and family that you're raising. And I feel blessed to have the opportunity to serve and be with kids and hopefully, in schools as much as possible, but oftentimes I'm in the background. And it's about setting the stage and engaging with the community. And one of the things the board and I were committed to when I first came here was this connection with the community. And hopefully I'm not gonna, give you too much background, because I think you guys are the ones who are connected and have some information. I wanna pause in a little bit and just make myself available to answer questions. But as Lauren said, just to give you a sense of what brings us to this point, students today have progressively been more likely to graduate on time from the Molalla River School District than students across the state. For 6 years in a row, those on-time graduation rates have increased. The reading achievement level of our students at 3rd grade outpaces the state. Our board has made decisions to place rigorous science curriculum in our high school. Project Lead the Way. I could go on for a great deal of time for what the board and teachers are doing this great work. But what's the community say? So together with the board, we surveyed the community about 3 years ago and asked that question. What's the community feel are the strengths in the school district, and what are the areas for improvement? The areas for strength that the community identified were, first, the teachers. A real sense that our teachers are doing great work. Second, a real sense of community. If you're from the rural Dell community, there's a sense of community. If you're from the Clarks community, there's a sense of community. If you're from the middle school community, because you have children who attend school here, there is a sense of community. And folks told us community is something they're proud of. The third thing that they're proud of, or that they gave us some positive feedback on, was the district's efforts to move forward and expand communication and engagement with the public. There were 3 targets that were pointed out, or 3 goals, areas to improve. Expand course offerings. I gave you some examples a moment ago. Restoring elementary music is another example of action that the board has taken to expand course offerings. Maintaining or improving class size. Today, class sizes in our middle school and high school are, I think, to a large degree, the envy of other school districts. We're staffed on average to be class sizes of 1 to 27 at our middle school and 1 to 28, 29 at our high school. Those are envious class sizes in other school districts. At the elementary school level, we're staffed 1 to 26. So those 2 priorities, and then really this commitment to maintain the district's, maintain the community's investment in all schools and improve facilities. So I'm kind of rambling here a little bit, but that's what the community said were areas for improvement. And that brought us 2 years ago to a process that had some of you involved in a long-range planning process, visiting schools, and I like to kind of just call this the public in public education. Your friends and neighbors were part of a 2-year process that looked at what's happening in our schools that we need to see continue, and where do we need to see continued improvements. And these folks said that there were 3 sort of core principles that the district need to be making decisions on when they're restoring programs or considering facilities. One of them is that at all times our schools have to be a safe place for kids. At all times our schools have to be a safe place for kids. 2, that our schools need to operate efficiently, that we need to respect the taxpayer's dollar, that we need to find ways to operate as fluidly as possible. And 3, that we're about high quality teaching and learning, right? They said those are the 3 things the community should make decisions on, or the board and the school district should make decisions on. So one of the pieces, many of you may be aware, is replacing the middle school. Mike might have commented on this as you were out and about. The proposal in this bond is to replace the middle school and move our 6th through 8 students, grade 6 through 8, to a facility that is on the same geography or the same footprint as the high school currently. What does that do? That attends to one of the priorities of the community, efficiency. When we talk about transporting our students, right now our 6th grade students ride the same school bus as our high school students. It works well, but we lose time transitioning those buses between buildings. And by having one drop-off point, one pickup point, not only does it improve efficiency for parents who might have kids at both levels, but our transportation provider for a student has estimated that the district will save close to $100,000 every year in routing of those brief, it might seem like a lot of money, and it is, it's a lot of money. And those 10, 15-minute increments of driver time and fuel and delays back and forth between buildings are eliminated when you have a joint campus. So I'm going to show you a picture of a test fit, an image that shows where the middle school conceptually could fit next to the high school, and I'll be glad to answer questions as we wrap this up here in just a bit. But this might be a spot where we get a light. Is it easy to get lights, Mike? So keep in mind, this is just a test fit. This is not a school building that's been designed. We didn't want to go out and design a building and spend money, paying an architect to design a school we didn't know for sure was going to be built. We got to wait and engage the community in this bond process. And when the community makes a decision to build a middle school on this footprint, community members in a process like this are going to help work with architects to actually design the school. Right? This is just a look at, is there enough room on this footprint for a middle school to be situated next to our high school? And there is. Without purchasing any property, this would be an entirely separate school with its own staff, its own principal, its own community, its own entrance, its own office, its own library, its own cafeteria. Because young adolescents, 12, 13, 14-year-olds need to be together. I believe that they need to be together in a school community, and that having them lumped together wouldn't be the right step. And I think the Long Range Planning Committee said the same thing. This is a separate school, but it's co-located much like North Marion. North Marion is a neighboring school district that has co-located campuses this way. You'll notice it consumes current parking and the current softball field. I want to talk about that for just a minute because it's essential that our girls have the same quality access to playing fields as our boys. So briefly, I would just show you that part of what we've been looking at is where will we place our softball field when this bond passes. We asked our architects really just to, on the basis of linear feet, tell us, could a softball field fit on the Heckard Field property? And sure enough, it fits here, it could fit here as well, but we know we've got a couple of options to place that softball field and make sure our girls have the same quality access to fields that our boys have. In the short term, as we're building schools, we would need to have an alternative solution. That alternative solution right now, when the weather's bad, is Clark Park, right? Mm-hmm. Our girls oftentimes play at Clark Park when the weather's bad because this field doesn't currently drain very well. But we made the decision not to improve the drainage and not to put a restroom out there and improve that facility because of the potential for this bond to pass. And when this bond passes, what we wouldn't want to do is have spent money improving the softball field and then have to take a step back and say that that was money not well spent. So we're in a holding pattern here for about 3 more months, and my hope would be working with the community that we'd move forward quickly to replace or actually expand the quality of softball fields in the district. You remember there were 3 core principles that the Long Range Planning Committee said were priorities. Safety was the first one. I'm going to pause there for a moment and say that Molino Elementary School, how many people have been to Molino recently? So you know that it's situated on both sides of Passmore Road. That by itself, the Molino community, when surveyed, is managed well by the staff at Molino. It's not ideal, but it's managed well, and the community believes the staff are doing the right work to make sure that students traveling across that road before and after school are managed safely. They have confidence in the staff, and that's great. The story that I want to tell you briefly is that South Campus, the flat roof building on the south side of Passmore Road, picture 2 third graders on a cold November day, right? Because there's no hallway. You got to leave the classroom to go to the restroom. So you're going to step outside on a cold, rainy, windy winter day as a third grader, and you're not going to send 1 third grader out by themselves. You're going to send 2. And in this current world that we live in, we lock school doors that are exterior doors during the school day. So the 2 little third graders travel down to the restroom, take care of business, and then they're traveling back to the classroom together. And I can always picture that little third grade hand, trying to knock on that door to get the teacher's attention to open the door and let them back in. Now the staff at Molalla do a great job of managing that, but is that the ideal environment for 9-year-olds to be educated in? I think the Long Range Planning Committee said no. So one of the things that will happen as a result of the bond is that South Campus at Molalla will be effectively enclosed. And so we've worked with architects to not design a building, right? We don't design buildings until bonds pass, until bond measures pass. But conceptually, we've looked at A, what it would take, and B, what it would cost. And this fits within the proposed plan. The last piece here that I want to share with you just visually is related to elementary school enrollment. How many people have visited elementary school lately? A couple of us maybe. If you walk the schools of our buildings today, or the hallways of our buildings today, and you walk past classrooms, one thing you'll notice is teachers in classrooms with children learning in every classroom. Every classroom is full. There is no more room at the inn, so to speak. There is more room at the inn if we decide that we're going to take cafeterias and turn them into temporary classrooms, or take libraries and turn them into temporary classrooms. We can create temporary space, but there are no more traditional classrooms available for the enrollment that's projected to increase over the coming years. A PSU demographic study has a enrollment growth line that shows us growing significantly between now and 2023. Enrollment's already outpaced that growth today, slightly. And if any of you ever want to get into those details, you have specific questions about numbers, I'd be glad to meet with any of you. But you know as well as I do that the new homes are being built. Hezzy Lane will push through briefly, and we're going to have 140 single-family homes in the next several years. So more families are coming, and the good news is we're ready in terms of having a plan, and that would mean taking the current middle school campus, this campus that we're on now, and placing an elementary school here. What the Long Range Planning Committee said is, yes, let's be respectful of the taxpayers' dollars. That doesn't mean we have to tear the whole place down. There are parts of the middle school that could be, with a little bit of renovation, integrated into this new facility. So the 6th grade wing is the newer part of this school with some renovation. The plan here is to include that and incorporate that into the elementary school. The gymnasiums with some retrofitting of access points for ADA, for example, are great gymnasiums. I like the vintage feel myself, right? And as long as we've got floors that we can refinish and bleachers that pull out and are safe, those are great gymnasiums for an elementary school. So those are maintained. We're not talking about spending money in those places. This elementary school would serve up to 400 students. I'll pause there and say that the total cost of this is significant when you think about the total dollars. There's no doubt that something north of a $70 million price tag is a significant thing, and it's something that I have a hard time wrapping my mind around exactly, like anyone, right? We don't think in millions typically. But what I can tell you is that that's what it costs today to build these facilities, and it will cost more, we hear from our architects, as time goes on. So there's merits in building facilities now with labor costs where they are, and the costs of these projects fit within that $73 million figure. What we also did in the last 6 months is we applied for some matching grant funds from the state. We're one of 5 districts in the state that was fortunate enough to be selected. If a bond passes in the community, there are $4 million of matching funds that come to the district that offset the total required to accomplish these goals. If the community doesn't pass the bond, that's part of the lay of the land at the state level means those $4 million move on to the next district on the list. So we don't receive those $4 million just because we applied. We receive them as matching funds. So what does it mean at Clark's? What does it mean at Rural Dell? What does it mean at our outlying schools? There's a key commitment to protect the community's investment in all schools in this bond. So those places where we need to replace roofs get replaced. The south building at Rural Dell is one of those. The areas where we have perennial sort of replacing of gravel parking lots, it's not a bad place to park, right? I park in the gravel parking, right? But you got to keep replacing that gravel, and over time, it makes sense to pave those parking areas. So paving parking areas is part of that at all schools. Improving the HVAC systems. So Mike, did you guys walk past the boiler here? So, the HVAC systems in our district currently are not the most efficient, and so replacing and repairing those pieces of HVAC across the district that will improve efficiency is part of this bond as well. And then finally, back to that notion of safety, every school, was designed at a time when we weren't terribly concerned about which door, folks entered in. And today we need to make sure that our entrances are more secure. So having more secure entrances and surveillance cameras across the district that are integrated into the safety system is also part of the bond. So I've rambled a bunch, but I'd be glad to answer questions if you have some, and then I have a challenge for you before I step away. So questions. Liz?
How much bond debt does the district currently have?
So currently there are 2 districts in the state, Molalla and Jervis, that I'm aware of, that have total bond indebtedness of 0. So it's not that the district doesn't receive money from Salem. We do receive money from Salem to operate, but there are no local dollars, and that's what's required for facility improvements. The state does not fund facility improvements like the ones we're talking about. I'm not answering your question directly, but the bottom line is 0 bonded indebtedness here. If we compare that to Gladstone, for example, in Gladstone the bonded indebtedness rate is $9 per thousand assessed value. In this case, when the bond passes, it goes from 0 to just under $2, $1.99 per thousand assessed value. And at that place, it sort of puts Molalla in the middle of surrounding districts, right? So it's not the district with 0, and it's not the district with $9, it's right about the middle. Yes?
About Molino School, is that, so the school will still be on both sides of Passmore Road, correct?
It will.
Okay.
It will.
I had thought that there was some talk about moving the office over to the south side, but.
There was. A long-range planning committee did look at taking Molino and moving it all to the south campus. And in surveys of the community, again, that feedback was that the staff are doing a fantastic job managing what we have, and taking a $73 million bond that attends to the middle school and increasing enrollment at the elementary school level, and adding Molino to it with a Molino movement to the south campus, push the size of the bond north of $90 million and made it, I think, less manageable for the community.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the
Yes.
If the bond passes, what's the proposed time frame to have all of this done, or at least phases? What are we looking at?
That's a great question. I was talking with a superintendent in another district, and they passed a bond, and folks in the community asked, well, how come you haven't broken ground on that new elementary school yet? So generally, it takes some time. So when a bond passes, it takes some time for those revenues to be actualized, right? For those bonds to be sold and the dollars to be available. That's about a 6 to 9 month process. In that time period, working with the community, we will be going through the design process. Having forums like this with architects where we're actually designing schools while we're preparing to actually break ground. The breaking ground spot here at not here at the middle school, but at the high school, that middle school footprint would be the first stage. Because again, until you move the kids who are here to the high school, you can't break ground on an elementary here. So the bonds get sold in 2 parts. And the impact of the taxpayer comes in 2. They don't all get sold at once, if that makes sense. And the impact to you as a taxpayer doesn't happen all at once. Occupancy of a new middle school is still 3 years out. So from the time a bond passes to the design process to the breaking ground to the building of this middle school would be a 3-year process. Elementary school is going to happen shortly on the heels of that. And as we look at enrollment growing, this is coming at the right time. It couldn't come any time sooner to be prepared for the enrollment that we're seeing. Yes, sir.
Getting back to the moving the middle school over by the high school, I was looking at that and trying to picture where the new middle school buildings would be. Now, where is Francis Street?
I'm glad you asked. I'm directionally challenged, so Francis
I was
is
trying
out here.
to flip that around and I couldn't.
So
Yeah,
it's
I can't. I see what you're saying in terms of flipping it, but right, Francis is right here,
Francis Street and St. James Church, the Buckaroos over
and
there.
St. James is over here.
So that middle part would be
Do I
kind
have that right?
Right below the green in that
It's behind the
open
back.
spot,
Thank
right
you,
there.
thank you.
That's pretty.
Yeah, because you can see the current softball fields here, and here's St. James.
of, yeah, okay.
Okay.
This by itself, as a middle school to serve 700 students is required to be a 2-story building.
Oh,
So you see basically the footprint for what would be a 2-story building here. I've been asked, does this cut into the soccer field? Soccer field would remain. Would need to move north just slightly, but it would remain on that same footprint basically. The crow's nest that's out there would need to be backed up a little bit as well. Linda?
There's also improved continuing education, so our Molalla middle school kids can start taking college courses earlier with higher qualified teachers.
Yeah, so what Linda's speaking about is, when a middle school student, I wasn't one of those, I think I did okay in school, but my brother certainly was. My brother was a kid who was ready for Algebra 2, when he was in 7th grade. And so to be able to take Algebra 2, there are very few of those kids. To be able to do that, we have those kids on a bus right now, in certain instances, traveling from the middle school to the high school for math. In this case, it would eliminate the transportation and the lost instructional time because that student would have a transportation plan basically to move from the middle school to the high school. Mike, you've talked a little bit about managing kids between the 2 schools and how, those, if I put my dad hat on and I think about my 6th grade daughter, and junior boys, is there a concern that I've got here? How do you see that playing out in this context?
So, as this is here, we have, they're going to be 2 separate schools, okay? There's not going to be easy access for high school kids to come into the middle school facility. They will have to come through the front door, just like everybody else, so that we can keep the school secure and manage who is and who is not in our classroom. The same goes for the middle school kids going to the high school kids. To the high school, it'll help us manage where our kids are at the same time. So that this whole thing will be put together in a way that that type of thing can be managed without actually having to do a whole lot of managing. I mean, it'll be thought out well that the facility helps us keep that whole thing separate. And any school that, any more that's being built, you want anybody coming into the school to come through right to the front door where the office can see who's coming in and out of the building. And that's how this will be set up also.
What about parking space? Quite a bit of parking space will be lost. Isn't that correct?
That is correct, and what I can
And
show
is
you.
there any thought or need, there's that vacant lot off part of St. James Church right next to the high school.
That's part of the St. James property.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, what I can tell you is this, that we asked the question of our architects who were looking at the test fit. When we look at property, and we look at the need for parking, what does that look like? In the photo I had up there a moment ago, it showed you, give me just a moment here.
Well, the thing is, you don't need a whole lot more parking for middle school. All you need is.
No, but you're losing parking area for high school.
There is.
Right.
So the image is going to come up, sort of gives you another look at where the parking that gets lost, quote unquote, but with the building of middle school, how that gets replaced. And so it's in these dark green spaces here. We're losing 80 spaces and replacing it with 96. So just right here on this same geography, we're able to replace it with 96. There's also a space over here for an additional 80 parking spots. So those details at the end of the day have to get worked out, again, with community input in the design process. But we ask these kind of hypothetical questions, what if, and how do we replace that parking? This gives you a sense of what the what if might look like.
Because, yeah, I'll grant you, you don't need parking spaces for middle school, but
Right,
you're losing the high school spaces.
right.
Oh, okay.
So I answered your question?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
that's good, thank you.
Other questions?
So can you give us an idea, so if the property taxes will be all $2, just keep it at $2 per thousand, on a $260,000 home, that's how much of an increase per year of your property taxes?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna round it in hundreds if you don't mind. So on a $200,000 tax assessed value, that equates to approximately $33 a month. So over the course of the year, that gives you a sense of what the impact is.
About 400, well, actually be over $400.
Yep. Yep.
When was the last time a bond, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
When was the last time a bond was passed for the schools in Molalla? It's
So-
been a while, right?
Yeah, so Luis referred to the building of the high school. Really effectively, that was the last bond for the purpose of building school space, instructional space.
That's what I thought.
Elementary was 1981, I think,
Yeah.
was the last elementary school.
Was that
bond.
MES, Molalla Elementary? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Yeah.
newest one.
Right. Okay.
Yes, Rob?
Wasn't the building at the high school, that was a combination of bond and insurance money, because that was when
Yes.
the other
Right.
school was destroyed by the
Oh,
spring
that's
break?
right, yeah.
Right.
That's
So
right.
that was a combination of funds,
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
actually?
I remember that.
Mhm.
Yep.
So that helped having that combination of insurance.
Yeah.
Thanks for that clarification, Ralph. That's absolutely correct. Other questions? Yes?
If it passes and, so we save the money on transportation, would they be able to get the electives that they used to have back into the schools?
So one of the questions, I think at the core of your question is what does the elective program look like at the middle school, and does this create some additional opportunities for us?
Or in the high school,
Or even the high school. So we have increased the kinds of electives, the kinds of advanced offerings, for example, in science over the recent years. Are we back at the place where we have the capacity to offer the kinds of electives that a school with, a 1,200 student enrollment might be able to offer? We're not there, but I would tell you other schools that are 800, like our high school, really don't have the same offerings. I will, say that, Mike Nelson and I have talked about what the middle school course structure looks like, and what this does is it conceivably provides more efficiency in the kinds of electives. Right now, instead of losing a period of instruction for the choir teacher, choir is here?
Choir is here.
Choir is here. So for the choir teacher to, get in his car and drive over here to the middle school to teach the period of choir, all this will be taught, on one campus. We won't lose that time. And back to your question, at the end of the day, schools are like any other place. To provide that instruction, and that time costs dollars. It costs that teacher's salary for that period of instruction. When we save that money, it can go back to other places. So whether it's the dollars saved from transportation or the dollars saved in efficiency on teacher time, you saw in that, I think the second slide, that was a community priority, is expand the course offerings. So we've been working to do exactly that. Yes?
Aren't we looking also at, when we have the middle school located there, that access for middle school, like 7th or 8th graders, access to some of the programs that are at the high school, such as ag or such as wood shop or whatever, that some of those things are going to be available?
Yeah, absolutely. Those details obviously have to be worked out as we look at schedules, but what it does is exactly that. It gives you access. Most school districts aren't going to have the capacity to have a metal lab or an advanced science lab in both locations. But when you've got them, when you've got the students in one location, it does create that opportunity for a period or an exploration to take place on that high school campus. Yeah.
I was just going to ask you if the vocational classes of experience due consideration or not, and also if any thought has been given to rejoining the ag program with the rest of the school.
So I'm gonna.
It's on an island of its own.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Let me talk about the sort of the career technical education programs in general. Ag science, metals. The board also added 2 years ago business education thread. That's also part of that CTE program. We also have video production, which is part of that CTE set of offerings. 2 years ago, the board also added half of a teacher position to bring back a lab teaching slot that would focus on woods. Ralph, you're going to describe it better than I will. Do you want to jump in on that?
Well, when we got rid of the construction or had to give up the construction program, basically it was 1/2 construction, 1/2 woods. And at this point, it's been very difficult because many of you probably know that they're not training teachers for any kind of those programs anymore. If you're lucky, in metals as an example, you'll get an ag teacher who has come out of Oregon State or another college that has that as a background. But they don't have that training for wood, so we're working on that and looking at having a program for woods and fabrication, as an example. And that's something that we really want to keep, get going. And then where it will go from there, we don't know yet.
2 years ago, we had a teacher candidate that we hired, offered the position to. That didn't quite work out for a variety of reasons, not to any fault of the teachers or the districts. It just didn't work out. And so it is difficult, as Ralph said, you know, to recruit that teacher without stepping too far and making a promise. I will tell you that we have a finalist candidate that I believe may play out so that we'd be in that spot next year.
What they normally were teaching teachers at that point was a degree in industrial arts, and that has disappeared. Some time ago.
Now, your second question, I think, was related to where instruction takes place in ag science. You know, at the end of the day, I know Lauren's taught in our ag science program at times. I may actually look to her to assist me on this. But you know, the lab space at the land lab, inside the facility, and you know, Ralph has said this before, Neil said this, we really have world-class facilities. Are you saying, I'm not sure I understand the question, are you thinking that having those elective courses taught at the main campus would be important?
I don't know, I didn't think my question through that far, Tony, but.
No, I mean, I just want to make sure I'm getting it. Is it about giving more kids access?
Partly, I guess. It's about that ag program being more closely knit with the main school.
Just in terms of culture? Yeah. I think we're moving in a direction that feels like, to me, right, and I'll look to Luis and Lauren, that we're moving in the right direction when you have student leadership, for example, is very connected to the FFA. Not that FFA and ag science are the same, right? But they're very connected. And I think Luis is a key part of making sure that they're connected. Lauren, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say I was really impressed moving from being a student in that program to teaching. How much better the culture had aligned itself from the time I was a student. I felt pretty separated from the main campus when I was in high school. Not that I really minded at the time. That was kind of my home. That's where I lived. That was my culture. That was my community. But I see those kids interacting and having much more of a presence on the main campus now, and vice versa. A lot more kids from the main campus that are stepping out and getting excited about taking classes out of the land lab. I think that teaching facility is really valuable, not only to the kids that are wanting to go into the agriculture field or have that interest or that background, but also to those kids in this community that never get the opportunity to experience life on a farm or even getting their hands dirty. And it's a real asset to our kids that have learning disabilities because of the ability for them to engage in hands-on learning there. So that facility really offers a lot of benefits that I don't know if I'd be willing to sacrifice giving that up to move them closer to the high school, I guess. That's my answer.
Just another related thought is this last year, the state and the legislature encouraging career technical education made some grant money available across the state to enhance CTE programs. We applied for a CTE grant. I thought it was a really solid, more than solid, I thought it was a world-class proposal written by teachers with a clear, passionate vision. Unfortunately, our grant proposal wasn't funded, but what it did do is it, again, kept the eye on the prize, it kept the fire alive that these programs can grow. And a key piece of the grant was giving middle school students access to land lab opportunities in some creative ways. So, with a bond passage that places high school, middle school on the same footprint with that vision, I believe that our great teachers are going to, find ways to push the envelope there. So I don't know if that was what you were looking for, but
I just wanted to throw it out there, maybe.
yeah.
Might be as simple as actually having a driveway that goes between the main campus and can't be that.
Gotcha.
hard.
keep it simple. I think you're on something there. And that is something that, we don't have a specific plan for currently, but it's always on the table. Is there a way to accomplish that for efficiency's sake?
It has been discussed.
Yeah. Other questions? So here's my ask, my challenge to you is this. At the end of the day, different people are interested in different kinds of information. Hopefully this gives you a general overview. But if you have a friend or a neighbor or a colleague, someone that doesn't have information about the bond, that would like more information about either the bond, or maybe they just don't have information about the district, what's happening in programs, I would like to challenge you to invite one or two friends to let me meet you somewhere, whether that's at Jasper's for coffee or at the district office, wherever you'd be comfortable to sit down and just have a conversation about what's happening in the district to make sure that we're continuing to communicate in creative ways. So we've got websites, we've got mailings, we've got lots of different things happening, but that one-to-one piece I think is a valuable way to answer questions. So if you'd like to, call my office, call Missy, right? Call my assistant Missy, and we'll get scheduled a coffee or some time with you and a friend to answer questions that they might have about the district. Enough of my rambling at this point. Lauren.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah.
Thank you for all of your great questions, everyone. I'm not going to keep you longer than necessary because we've already kind of gone over our promised time, but I just really want to applaud you all for coming this evening to get the real facts about this bond and the real need that we have in this community to build new schools for our students. I'm not going to lie to you, our biggest challenge that we're facing right now is not that we're getting a lot of negative pushback about this bond, it's that we've had really low engagement from the community about wanting to get the facts. And I'm going to do a little ask also that if you feel comfortable talking to your friends and neighbors about the need for this bond, or at least directing them to information, the district office is definitely willing to give that information out. Also, our website, Believe in Molalla Schools, has a tremendous resource page. We've got most all the documents that the district has available on there that can be downloaded and shared, and the conceptual maps of Molino, the new elementary school, and the middle school. So just directing people to those pages and our Facebook, that's what we really need help with now. So again, thank you so much for coming this evening, and vote yes on May 17th.
Thank you.